Zoe Carpenter is a reporter for The Nation, and on our news line this morning has been covering this secrecy, intelligence, privacy issue for a long time. Hello, Zoe. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you with us. So, what was let's say the nation's take on President Obama's speech last week, which was painted as a big reform of what NSA was up to? Is that what we got?
No, I think most of the headlines around the country said, Obama proposes modest reforms for the surveillance programs. And it's true he did suggest a few minor changes, but the bigger story is the fact that he has really endorsed some of the broad principles that are underlying the surveillance state. For example, the idea that the government should have access to bulk records of America's telephone calls. And those are records of who we call, when we call, how long the calls last. And that really can paint a picture, as many others have warned, about our daily habits and who our social networks are.
He also continues to insist that this is necessary and that has proven to be effective in combating terrorism. Where's the evidence of that?
Well, there's very little evidence that the telephone metadata program specifically has had any immediate impact on counterterrorism operations. And, it's really surprising and sort of discomforting to hear Obama use the same rhetoric of fear and terrorism that George Bush used post 9/11 to rally support for some of the overseas operations and the domestic spying programs that he put in place. And we're really hearing that same rhetoric about the need for these programs because of terrorism. And in fact, there's some concern that collecting huge troves of data actually makes us less safe, because we know that after 9/11, or that before 9/11, the problems were that the intelligence community weren't sharing information with each other. It wasn't that they didn't have the right information.
No, they had the telephone calls. I mean, again, I've talked often about the Al-Qaeda members who were living in San Diego while they were plotting their attack against the World Trade Center, right? And they were living openly and using their telephones, and the CIA knew they were there, never told the FBI or whatever. The agencies were not cooperating. So I guess the question is, so the president gives this big speech. What is different today? What actually changed, right, for the better after the president's speech?
Well, a couple of things. Concerning the telephone metadata program, now agency officials, NSA officials, have to have a court order from the FISA court, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Authority Court,
right,
to query the data. And that's important that they have to at least go before a court. Also, he's asked the Director of National Intelligence and the Attorney General to come up with a plan for moving this data out of government hands, maybe to a third party and maybe to the telecoms.
Right. But the other side of that is, right, they're still going to collect the data, and it's still going to be stored somewhere. And for the time being, we don't know where else it's going to be stored, so it's still going to remain with the NSA until they sort this out, correct? And how long is that going to take?
He's given the agency 60 days to come up with a plan. It's not clear that they will be able to come up with a plan or what the procedure would be after that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important also to note that the telephone metadata program is just one of many surveillance programs that we know thanks to the Edward Snowden leaks. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned Edward Snowden, because that was going to be my next question. I was surprised, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, that the president went out of his way in his speech to slam Edward Snowden, right? There seems to be an obsession with Edward Snowden, maybe part of this administration's obsession with leakers in general, right? I mean, that they really want to bring him back here and try him on the Espionage Act and treat him like Bradley Manning.
I think it's clear that they do. It creates a huge problem for the administration because, on the one hand, you hear the administration condemning Snowden's actions, and saying that it's hurt national security. And then at the same time, they're praising the opportunity to discuss these programs and to have this conversation with the American people. It seems ludicrous to me to say that we would be having this discussion without Edward Snowden. And so if we find this discussion valuable, you have to say then that his leaks are valuable.
Well, we could not have this discussion without Edward Snowden because we would not know what NSA was doing, right? I mean, it's just a fact, right? So I don't get it. I must say I was really disappointed. I think the whole speech amounted to nothing and no change.